Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. I'm your host, Corey Sievers. And look, you're in for a treat. Thanks for joining us here on the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. We've got a lot of things to cover. We're going to be talking in this particular session on the 7 hormone myths for women. We'll be talking about 11 ways to work smarter and not harder in Wealthy and Wise. And, it's springtime here in this region of the world, and that's a great time to be out and about and enjoying more of the outdoors life. But spring can sometimes be really disturbing for those of you with hay fever and allergies. So we'll talk some tips on all of that and more. So again, welcome to the show, and this time around, I'm actually joined by a co-host. So I have Linda Barker on the show with me today, a co-founder of the Savvy team. So good to have you here, Linda.
Thank you, Corey. And yes, it's good to be here. And thank you for having me.
So after all, I've done master classes and all sorts of things related to hormonal health for women, but we thought we just need to have Linda here to talk to you about women's hormone balance and some of the myths that are perpetuated out there. So all that and more are coming up in the show. Looking forward to it, actually.
Yes, it's going to be a good show. Women's hormones, I guess it's always a topic for lots of humour.
Yeah, that's right.
Especially
so,
women.
Look, if you're new to what we do here in the Savvy team, we're all about helping you reach a higher level of health and lifestyle. And look, let us know if you're coming on live. Let us know in the comments that that you're joining in. So wherever you're joining in from too, say hi, give us a wave. If you're joining live, drop us a wave emoji or a hi or something, and we'll be able to, get things in order. Linda, I just have one little technical thing that I realised didn't get done, so I might throw over to you for a little bit just to to welcome everyone, have a chat, encourage people to.
Thanks, Corey. Yes, indeed. And certainly it's something that we really do need to be able to be sharing with our friends and family. So if you're on here and you've ever had any benefit from any of the health solutions we've suggested, it'd be really good if you could go to the page and share. If you're on here, you could be in one of the groups, but go to the page and share from there so that anybody can get to hear it. It's a public page, and it's a really good idea to make sure that your friends are getting the latest and greatest information. And yes, Corey, you said it's spring. Spring is beautiful, but it is also a key time of year for seasonal allergies and so we'll be talking about that more.
Indeed.
Shortly.
Indeed. So still taking care of some things here. Okay. So again, if you're brand new, also drop a new in the comments so that we know that so we can connect and get the chance to talk with you. So yeah.
Yes, we're talking about 7 hormonal myths for women, but I'm just talking about a myth. One of the myths that's nothing to do with hormones about women is that women are multitaskers and we can do many things at once. And yet Corey seems to be a particularly good male multitasker, if you ask me. The many things that he juggles and organises to get this show on the road is pretty extraordinary. If you were looking in the background, you'd be just wondering how he does it. And bringing me on as well just causes a few extra complications, if you like. So
it's supposed to help. It's supposed to help, but
yes, it is supposed to help. It gives you a voice. But I'm just making a call to anyone who happens to be listening at the moment. If you hear any sound issues when we go to different things, then if you could let me know, or let us know in the comments, or let me know by private message if you're a friend, then that could really be something. I'm not sure how I will let Corey know because I'm in a different place. But
let's do a little bit of a test right now. So
okay.
we'll just cross over here and so, hey everybody, welcome to the show. So Linda, do you want to give me a little bit of some words?
Some words. Well, spring is here and it's a wonderful time of year. The weather is glorious. The sun's shining brightly. The wind isn't hitting us too hard, and it's just lovely.
If that's the truth for you in your spring area. The wind is certainly hitting us hard here, and it's a westerly, and so it's very weird, but and very gritty outside and all. So anyway, I think we're good to go. It looks like the sound's getting through there. So again, welcome to the Healthy Wealthy Wise show. And if you are brand new to what we do here in the Savvy team, we're all about helping you enjoy improved health and lifestyle. And when you connect in with our community, you'll have access to step-by-step action plans, access to innovative solutions, and all the guidance and support that you need to get the job done. And some of our wellness programs, they range from our 10 years younger challenge all the way to our detox protocol. And so there's no doubt something for you, a step-by-step action plan to really help you reach that higher level of health and lifestyle. So in essence, we're here to inspire you, to motivate and guide you to get, to that higher level of health and lifestyle, whatever that means for you. We all come into this world with different genetic potential, different programs, different weaknesses and all that sort of thing. And so we can't all be the same. And that's the blessing. But what that means for each of us is what good health and well-being, what optimal wellness is different for everyone. It's individual to us. So we want to guide you to your best health potential. So we might jump on into a quick tip before we get underway for the main section of the show. And the quick tip this time around is actually on the importance of reducing chemical load. So one of the fundamental principles that we believe in here in our wellness organization is that we assert that most disease states begin because of excessive toxicity and a lack of nutrition. So to bring about a better balance in our body, we need to decrease the overall toxic load on the body whilst increasing the nutrition that our body has access to. Because when we reach a nutrient saturation point, ample levels, more than enough of the right nutrients, our body can do restorative work and regenerative work. So the quick tip this time round is that you probably are underestimating the impact that toxins and endocrine disrupting chemicals have on the body. So we really, truly encourage you to look to all avoidable sources of chemicals and reduce your load. It makes such a difference. And we do encourage you to start in the bathroom and also with food, because what you're putting into your mouth is directly absorbed. What you're putting onto your skin is directly absorbed. Then you would move towards the house and looking in the home and expanding that out. So we do cover this in our Wellness It's Not That Hard topic, but we have a free report. And so ask us for the report that covers the 15 harmful ingredients that you'll want to remove ASAP. And these are not necessarily the most toxic, but they are the most prevalent. And so ask for that report. In fact, if you're joining us on Facebook right now, then if you simply make a comment in the post, if you'd like, for example, comment toxins, then you'll get some instructions and you'll be able to follow those instructions. We can send over this report in Messenger. Otherwise, if you're just joining from elsewhere, like on YouTube or whatever, you can message the page. Just go to our Facebook page. That's at facebook.com/Savvy Team, and just message the word toxins and we'll get that report over to you. So yes, Linda was covering before that it is indeed spring, and spring's not necessarily a great time for some. It's allergy season for many, many people. So Linda, did you want to kick anything off talking about spring at all?
Well, I love it. It's a lovely time of year, and September is a lot of people's favourite month, but it also is an amazing number of people's worst month of the year, because they get all sorts of sniffling and sneezing with spring sort of allergic rhinitis, hay fever, and asthma, and all sorts of sinus issues. And so, yeah, it's really, for some, it's not so much fun. Yeah.
So for me personally, if I was to go back maybe 20 years ago, I had a lot of allergies, and when I was a kid, I suffered from asthma, and certainly the allergies and hay fevers were big. So it was whenever there was dust in the atmosphere, like it was today, I'd be sneezing and sneezing and sneezing. I ended up beginning a cleaning business, and was really that was really fun, in more ways than one. Because any dust and everything, I'd sneeze and sneeze and sneeze and sneeze, and it just wouldn't stop. It just would be just like my nose would be running. And it was it was obviously reducing the toxic load. So I'd, even though I was involved somewhat in, in understanding natural health and wellness and thought I was reducing the toxic load, when I really started to put a focus on reducing chemical exposure, I think that helped. But the biggest difference that I found is when I started on the antioxidant blend that we now use, and that's with things like ginkgo biloba and curcumin and grapeseed extract and pine bark extract and those sorts of things. I wouldn't have thought that an antioxidant would help with my hay fever. And yet when I was taking 4 of those per day, my hay fever symptoms disappeared altogether. And so there were a few other things that I did too, like reducing the toxic load and all that sort of thing. But I didn't make that much change, that many changes, and yet just my hay fever totally disappeared. Other people have used other blends, like one that we use for respiratory health or one that we use for immune health, to overcome their asthma and allergies and bronchial issues and all that sort of thing. But there are natural solutions. It's just that I think that what people think of, Linda, do you think that this is the case, that people think like a medication you take when you have the symptoms, you don't sort of take it to improve your immunity and not end up with the symptoms? So I couldn't take that antioxidant and get rid of hay fever, but when I was taking the antioxidant at the right levels, my hay fever symptoms disappeared because my system was able to cope with the load of allergens and toxins and all that sort of thing. So
yes, it's interesting, isn't it, how prevention, it's all about what you're referencing is really about prevention. And histamine is what happens in the body. It's the chemical that creates all those reactions, and it makes the lining of the nose swell and redden, and that's to stop more allergens getting in, and it helps trigger sneezing, which actually is to get rid of any of those irritations. But if they're already in your system, it's too late, isn't it? The antihistamine is too late, really.
Well, or it's, as you said, the symptoms that we're experiencing we don't want to suppress them. Well, we sometimes need to suppress them just to get through the day and get to work and all that sort of thing. But that's actually then doing damage to the body because we're suppressing the symptoms that would otherwise allow us to be eliminating or protecting ourselves from further toxicity, as you said.
Yeah.
So and so it's to protect ourselves.
Where if it's in the body already, then it's already protecting us internally, and we're able to deal with them as they come. And that's the difference. Some people just can't deal with that. And you're talking about yourself, Corey. 2 of my daughters actually get seasonal hay fever, and you talk about the dust, but it's the pollens as well from the different trees. And this area of southeast Queensland is particularly rife with, that's where I live, and it's particularly rife with pollen issues and issues from natural plants, from nature really, but the winds bring them in and then we have to deal with them.
Yeah, and I think what we're dealing with when we're dealing with histamine reactions too, again, a lot of people have leaky gut, a lot of people have, and so they're having underlying, on too many grains, too many sugars, they have some underlying autoimmune stuff going on here, which basically sort of excites or irritates the immune system, meaning that anything that's foreign, the immune system overreacts. Yep. And so again, we've got to reduce the toxic load, but we also, if we change our diet, follow more of the Eat Savvy approach, which is an anti-inflammatory diet, it reduces the incidence of leaky gut, reduces the incidence of autoimmune triggers, and improves things out of sight. So, I mean, really, the solution for your hay fever and allergy symptoms could be cleaning up your diet, cleaning up your home, and just getting onto some basic herbs and antioxidant support to build your system up. So look,
Definitely.
if you have been struggling with hay fever, allergy symptoms, and spring is not a fun time for you, then we may be able to help. So talk to your Savvy Team wellness guide, or message the page or whatever, and let's get you on an action plan for that. So before we jump on into talking about the 7 hormone myths for women, Linda, we are going to be dealing with some fun facts. It turns we're dealing with women's hormones, obviously, and it turns out that that men and women are different.
Oh no! Don't believe it.
It turns out that men and women are different. We're talking. What's interesting, and since we're talking about the hormones and everything, anyway, I'm probably getting ahead of myself. But again, if you've just joined us for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show here, I'm your host, Corey Sievers. I'm joined by a co-host today, Linda, and we're going through the 7 hormone myths for women. And right now, we're covering 20 fun facts about what makes men and women different. So if you do know somebody who really could benefit from, balancing up their hormones and that sort of thing, then do please share this with your friends, and or tag somebody here. Love to have them join in. So yeah, time to cover some fun facts here. Let me just bring the fun facts up again. Interesting one here. So I thought we needed to do some fun facts here. We're doing this fun facts segment as part of the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show now. Last time around, you can go back and check it out, but we talked about the hair, some fun facts about the hair. And this time it's about the difference between men and women with a little bit of a slant towards hormones. So let's get going. So, and please comment as you go along. If you're joining us live, we'd love to know. Give us a wave, and if any of these relate. Or what about maybe there's a fun fact that you've experienced about the differences between men and women? Share that with us too. They say that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. You've probably heard that, right? Well, we're actually the same species and from the same planet, but yes, we are certainly different. There are differences. And even with hormones, sometimes the differences are simply we have the same hormones, but it's the makeup, the expression of those hormones can change, how we develop and how our hormonal system operates, really. So obviously we have unique biological functions, and if we look at that biologically, it's all about survival, and there's a lot of what we still, even when we're conscious beings and all that sort of thing, our genetics really date back to when survival was the core thing. And so the way that men needed to survive and the way that women needed to survive and the tasks that we took on were very different. And our biology still operates in that way, although we have, a lot of this gender equality type of stuff that goes on and all that. So we don't want to get into that because there are differences. There are biological differences between men and women. We're not having a political disagreement here about power of women or the status of men or anything. We're talking biology. So genetically, men and women's DNA is 98.5% identical. So we're identical here. We have the exact same hormones, but as I said before, it's the ratio that makes us different. So here are some fun facts. Number 1 is men typically have thicker skin by about 25%. They have higher density of collagen in their bodies. So sorry, ladies, that does mean that women's skin does tend to lose its elasticity and age faster and sag more than men's. But I guess no fear, we've got your back on that. You can check out our 10 years younger challenge. We have, we've seen great results with people following the 10 years younger challenge, and especially with the bio-optimized collagen that we utilize in that. So I might just zip through. So Linda, I'll come back to you in just a moment. I'll zip through some of these things here, and then we'll have a chat maybe. So yes, look, ladies, you can optimize your collagen even though you lag a little bit behind the fellas. Number 2, the differences in this density of collagen goes a lot more than skin deep. Men have denser, stronger bones. They have denser, stronger ligaments and tendons compared to women as well. So again, women more susceptible to some of those injuries and etc. So number 3, from about the age of 14 to 51, women typically need more iron and all of the other trace minerals compared to men. What do you think that's about? That's right, menstruation. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the hormonal ups and downs and PMS and menopausal symptoms and touch on a little bit about menstruation. But ladies, do you supplement with trace minerals? Because, I mean, this is the thing. It's identified that women need typically more iron and a broad spectrum of trace minerals. It's typically said they need more iron, but there's a lot more lost in blood than just iron. And so women do have a tendency to become trace mineral deficient unless they're supplementing with trace minerals, which is what we recommend here in the Savvy team. And so a plant-based liquid trace mineral supplement is best. If you want some solutions, then certainly reach out to us and we can point you in the right direction. So number 4, on average, men typically have more muscle mass than women. And so these skeletal muscles, faster, more powerful, all of that sort of thing, compared to women. And that's not a slight on the women. Obviously, it's just the way it is. It's the biology and the different makeup of the hormones that create that. Now, that's obviously on average. There are plenty of women that could probably deck many men out there because of their strength. That's because they've developed the strength. Just like any skill or anything, we can develop more. We put focus onto it, we can develop that more. So, but women's muscles are typically more able to resist fatigue and they recover faster. Number 5, the second longest finger for most women is next to their thumb. So that's the second longest finger. So obviously the middle finger is the longest. For most women, it's their pointer finger, their index finger. But for men, it's the opposite. They usually have ring fingers. So next to the pinky, that is longer. Okay? So, by the way, as a total aside, women tend to have this as the longest finger, men tend to have this. Now, ladies, the ring finger length as compared to the index finger length has been correlated to the size of a man's flaccid penis, just so you know. I want to keep this show rated PG, but they have studied, they have done extensive studies, and the length of the index finger as compared to the pointer finger relates to the development and the injection of testosterone while in the womb and in the developmental stage. And they've actually correlated that difference between the finger length is actually more relevant than the height of a man as far as his penis length. Just so you know, there's no guarantee that he's not a grower rather than a shower. But anyway, as I said, let's keep this show rated PG. Number 6, folate is an essential vitamin for both men and women. They both need it, but obviously women of childbearing age, it's particularly important. And so obviously if women do become pregnant, they need enough folate for neural development. The disappointing thing here, in my opinion, is that becomes like the pregnancy nutrient that everybody gets focused on. Whereas what we've seen, so in other words, it's how low can we go so that we avoid deficiency diseases and developmental diseases in the fetus. Whereas what we believe in is optimizing nutrition. So if you're looking to fall pregnant, spending a bit of time getting your system up to speed, both mum and dad, really makes a difference to the health of the child. And far more than just folate, we're talking all of the B vitamins, we're talking minerals, we're talking essential fatty acids, and the reduction in chemical load too, because there's no barrier between the chemicals in mum, through the umbilical cord, and there's no blood-brain barrier for the fetus in the early stages of their life. So reducing chemical exposure, so important. So it's far more than just getting more folate when you're pregnant. Number 7, the differences in the way that male-female brains are structured, okay? How they process information, there's big differences here. How they interact with chemical signals. Some examples, men have more information containing grey matter, whereas women have more white matter, okay, which connects different parts of the brain. So women have bigger memory centers than men. That's right, gents. Women never forget. So it's interesting that, you know, even though men they actually have information containing grey matter, women have better memories. It's very interesting the way our brains have been hardwired. And historically, that meant that we would be put into roles that optimized our whole genetics. And in this day and age, the reason that we see more stress in women is that they really are attempting to, and I don't get not attempting. Women perform very well in high power roles and everything. But I guess I just want to say that it does not mean that it's not taking its toll, since we're talking about hormonal balance somewhat today. So, ladies, it's very important if you find yourself in a male-dominated sort of position in life, in the workplace and everything. It's so very important that you take extra steps to tackle the stress load on your system, because you'll have a lot more of a domino effect decline in the response of your hormonal system. So we're talking biology here. We're not talking political good and bad for women or any that sort of thing. Linda, I don't know, did you want to pipe in on that so that I'm not left hanging here as a man with a political agenda here? What do you reckon?
I'll be talking about that whole thing a little bit later, really, in some of our other discussion. But I think there's a lot of tendency these days to try and prove ourselves, prove our worth, prove that we're equal to the other sex, you know. And I think we all have strengths and weaknesses. And as you say, there are genetic things that are actual strengths and weaknesses, as in our muscle ability, muscle strength, which a man has more muscle strength and a woman has a better ability to recover, and all that sort of stuff across our whole body. But it is interesting how women, well, I guess I always considered myself a bit of a women's liver, but I think you go beyond the point of fighting for your rights and end up finding that you're developing things that you don't want, as in developing situations. And I think in workplace, it's interesting. We're not controlled by our genetics, but we're certainly looking for equality. But equality doesn't mean that we look the same and that we act the same and we behave the same or think the same.
Yep, for sure. All right. Well, more on that. You know, it's interesting because on that, I was reading in the lead up to this, I was reading an article from a PhD sort of saying that PMS is a myth. So she was basically saying PMS is a myth. And the reason that she was asserting for that is that women use it as an excuse, that gender bias has been created around PMS and all that sort of thing. It's been articulated as a disease and all these sorts of things, which is what we don't agree with. We don't agree with that either. But to ignore the biological things that go on is also insane. So, and so what she was trying to do is to sort of, I guess, to empower women by saying PMS has been made up and none of that exists. Whereas what we assert is PMS is not made up, but it's a symptom of underlying dysfunction in the body that we can biologically correct. So we're both on the same page in a way. The PhD was sort of saying women don't have it, and so don't think that you're lesser than men or whatever, is what she was sort of asserting. And we're saying, well, women do have it, but that's an indicator of hormonal dysfunction that we can correct. And then you will be in balance and you won't experience those symptoms. So, but I get ahead of myself when we're dealing with the myths. So let's just go back to dealing with these fun facts about the differences between men and women. So if you have just joined us, we're dealing with fun facts, part of the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. And we're just up to number 8. Number 8 is a woman's circadian rhythm is more likely to be a little bit short than a 24-hour period. So they get ahead of us. These women, they get ahead of us by 6 minutes every day. Men are statistically more likely to be night owls, and by the way, women function better during periods of sleep deprivation than men. That's not to say that it doesn't have a domino effect decline on hormones. During exercise, women's primary fuel is fat. For men, it's carbohydrates. And of course, this can be tweaked, and it also can become a little bit deranged by poor diet. So there's no doubt in this day and age with carbohydrate overload that women have become carb burners as well as their primary fuel source. But women are much more adept at being able to have that metabolic flexibility between becoming a fat burner, and that's why between being a carbohydrate burner and a fat burner, and that's why they carry as a protective mechanism a little bit more fat. I think I'm getting ahead of myself there too. So obviously your fat burning ability can be ruined by poor lifestyle, whether you're male or female. Number 10 is the average adult female has about 15 to 70 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone. So as I said, the makeup is exactly the same, men and women. The hormones are the same. The makeup differs. So 15 to 70 nanograms per deciliter, whereas the average adult male has 270 to over 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. So you can see that's what changes things. And so that's obviously if women have higher testosterone levels, whether because of metabolic issues that have gone on or just naturally, they're going to exhibit more of the male traits. Okay, so this is where it's not necessarily about gender bias. It actually can be biology going on here. Now, after the age of 30, a man's testosterone levels drop by about 1%, gradually drop 1%, okay? And that doesn't happen for women. Women's hormones are much more dynamic. And this is really why in the media and in clickbait online, there's a lot of manopause put out there. Men get manopause, and or andropause or whatever. This is where we'll deal with this maybe in the topic of when we're dealing with the 7 myths, because that's another myth for men. There's not really a manopause, because there isn't a time when anything changes dramatically like there is in a woman with the stopping of menstruation. So men have a basic steady decline during aging. So there isn't a sudden pause. So if there has been a sudden pause and menopause has ensued, that means the man has done something in his lifestyle to mess up testosterone. So if we correct the underlying imbalance, then we can raise the testosterone up again. Now, obviously, men, there are differences in genetics. Some men do have lesser and some men do have more, but a lot of it is lifestyle dependent as well. So it's so important to get rid of the endocrine disrupting chemicals, guys, that we just talked about. So important for you. In some ways, more important than women, because of the SBS documentary where they believed that back in 2005, they said men in danger, looking at these endocrine disrupting chemicals, are feminizing men, reducing penis size, more boys experiencing undescended testicles and testicular development disorders and hormone development disorders. So guys, clean up the toxic tap, turn off the toxic tap. Number 11, calorie requirement for men is higher than women. Simple. More muscle, more structure, bigger metabolic rate, all that sort of thing. So kilo for kilo, muscle weighs a lot more and men have a lot more density of muscle. Number 12, men and women carry different amounts of body fat, as I alluded to before. The higher the body fat in women is mostly that protective reproductive physiology system. So women have that, they're better fat burners and they hold more fat in order to be protective and have ample food and nutrients there for the developing fetus. So that's an example of why when women really try to get down to low body fat levels, their menstruation goes away. Number 13, women typically carry their body fat on, where is it, ladies? The hips and the thighs, that's right. Whereas men tend to develop around the stomach, around their abdominal, and that men tend to be more likely to have visceral fat, which is the fat around the internal organs, leading to a higher prevalence of cardiovascular disease. It's just one of those risk factors there. Women, so number 14, sorry, is that women typically have lower blood pressure than men, regardless of race or ethnicity. Also, the difference between men and women's size means that men typically require higher protein diets to support the higher levels of muscle. Number 16, men are less likely to seek medical checkups. And when they go to the doctor, they're more likely to hide or lie about their symptoms than women. So women just lay it out. Number 17, zinc tends to be generally similar for men and women, but pregnant and post-menopausal women require more zinc. I believe they require more minerals across the board. Both sexes store zinc in the bones, but guess where men can also store zinc? In the prostate. That's why you've heard that prostate cancer risk goes up when zinc is low. So again, we need lots of zinc. Number 18 is men are less sensitive to cold temperatures than women. Number 19 is that women have better senses of smell and taste. They actually have 50 more neurons in their olfactory bulb, the part of the brain that's responsible for processing smell. So women are also have better taste buds and more taste buds than men. So this is why, is this why women's really should be the cooks and the better cooks? They have more taste buds, they have all of that. I don't know, won't go there. But number 20, the differences in the way men and women see the world is partly physical. On average, men are more likely to be colorblind, but their eyes also sense movement better, whereas women are able to distinguish very small differences in color. So there you go. They're the 20 fun facts, the differences between men and women. And so it's almost like, okay, well then that's the fun fact. So Linda, what do you reckon? Now what? We know all of the differences, but what has that got to do with anything? Well, I guess when we look at all of these sorts of things is to understand that if we are different, we can be complementary. And that's like that in any community. If we look historically, people, because of the differences in our biological types, our interests, our skills and everything, we function well as a community. And that's really what we encourage here today, that we all have the ability to receive different insights. And if we work together, everyone achieves a lot more. So any thoughts on some of those tips there, the 20 fun facts on the differences between men and women that we've been sharing here?
Well, it was interesting, Corey, because it was actually drawing out a whole lot of things when you talk about facts, and we're going to be talking about myths. And a lot of those things that you were talking about, genetics, for instance, the whole genetic facts that you were talking about, just really are interesting in light of what we're going to be talking about shortly. So they were pretty good. Thank you.
Okay. So, gentlemen, by the way, we do have a free online class, the 11 Ways to Boost Testosterone and Sex Drive Naturally. So do check that out. So I wonder whether, I don't know whether I notice a couple of comments going on in the comments there, but let us know if you've had any insights from that, if there have been any inspirational insights about learning the differences between men and women. So if you have just joined us for the Healthy Wealthy Wise show, I'm your host, Corey Sievers. I'm joined by a co-host today, Linda. And that's because in this particular show, we are going to be dealing with the differences. We've been dealing with the differences between men and women, but we're also going to be dealing with the 7 hormone myths for women. So if you're new to what we do here in the Savvy team, then we're all about helping you enjoy improved health and lifestyle and reach that next level of wellness, really. So consider subscribing if you're joining us on YouTube, or following us and liking the page if you're on Facebook. So before we jump on into the 7 hormone myths for women, I guess let's just look at this. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're, in the early years of your life and suffering from PMS symptoms and cramping and not being able to deal with the things of life, whether you've got kids and you're dealing with overwhelm and struggling with being able to keep up with that, whether you're in your perimenopausal years and you're noticing the decline in hormones and the impact that that's having on your ability to focus and work and all that sort of thing, or if you are in your more mature years, wherever you're at, whatever age bracket you're at, it's so important to respect your hormones. And Linda, that's really what we're going to be talking about in this particular section of the show, the hormone myths for women. I'm going to go through a little bit of information to begin with, and then we'll have a discussion around the hormone myths. But did you want to add anything there about the different age brackets and the different challenges that women can face and that sort of thing? Is there anything before we get underway?
Interesting, just looking at some of the photos, thinking back to what you had already shared, and I was thinking as you were sharing them, would have been good to have them afterwards, because you're debunking some of the myths with some of the facts there, the fun facts, the differences between men and women. But if you notice in the comments, I just made a comment when you began about the thick skin, and the thick skin, we don't like to be thick-skinned. Women say men are thick-skinned, but in fact they are, and that was something that I found interesting. But we tend to think of thick skin from the emotional, mental strategy, whereas you were talking just the fact of physical thicker skin. And it showed up, and it does show up as we age, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it's more, theoretically, it is thicker. There's thicker skin. Men have thicker skin. They have oilier skin. But in the terms of this, we're talking about collagen density right throughout the body. Ligaments, muscles, bones, cartilage, all of those sorts of things, but also skin. So ladies, that does mean if you want to slow aging, you want to put a bit of extra in compared to the men. And that's really why we have our 10 years younger challenge. It's both for men and women, but let's face it, women, you certainly want to bio-optimize the collagen and the hyaluronic acid levels in your body, because they're the two key factors that really lead to aging skin. Of course, we're not saying that you shouldn't be happy in your skin and aging gracefully and all, but who doesn't want to optimize what they've got and look and feel younger, right?
Yeah. And sometimes, and people think it's all about looks, but really how we're looking externally is really how we're feeling and operating internally. It's not where our external skin isn't separate from inside us. So while it might be a bit considered vain to think about how we look and worry about looking 10 years younger, but it's look and feel, and the feeling comes from how we're operating. So yeah, it's a great course I can highly recommend people check that out, that masterclass.
So we're talking about things such as mood swings. We're going to be dealing with the mood swings and some of the myths around that. We have the 7 menopausal dwarfs here, which is quite fun. Itchy, bitchy, sweaty, bloaty, sleepy, forgetful, and psycho. And so, this is the thing, this PhD that I was reading this article about was sort of saying that all of this was basically debunking this and saying that women should ignore all of this, that it's because many people do feel that it's a mental disorder, and the anger is like something that's going on from a mental disorder. And she was sort of, sorry, Linda?
So I was going to say, some of those, there's not enough dwarves there, because I definitely get into an ornery dwarf.
There's an ornery dwarf too, hey? And, a lot of the times depression and anxiety is certainly big, and we might put on a smiling face and all something. And this is what I'm saying about what was frustrating for me about this particular author asserting that it isn't an issue and that women need to simply... I feel that almost she was saying women need to sort of get over themselves, that these issues don't exist. And it's just been put on us by society and medicalization of PMS and everything. And we somewhat agree, but what we're suggesting is that you take action on correcting the underlying biological influences that lead to those sorts of things, or cramping and that. But because, there are some things that we do. These are all the challenges for women, but, if you get man boobs, that's not normal. It doesn't matter how, I mean, this is the ridiculous thing. If we wanted to go for the equality argument, we could say, well, if women can have breasts, then men can have them too. But it's a sign of dysfunction. So, guys, you certainly don't want the man boobs there, because, chances are if you're experiencing man boobs, then the gun might be switching off too. Because when we're dealing with anything to do with hormones, they're symptoms. When we're dealing with all of these issues of PMS, menopausal things and everything, these symptoms are not enemies to be destroyed, but they're sacred messengers who encourage us to take better care of ourselves. That's what we assert. Such a good statement here. So to give you a bit of a glimpse of the power of taking action, for example, these are just some of the things that happen for community members. So certainly being savvy changed Julie's whole life with losing more weight, and she had a lot of hormonal imbalance, and that cleared up by following our strategies. Lost a lot of weight too. So Nadia had thyroid issues, was on HRT, suffered from obesity and depression. It all went away when she followed our general wellness philosophies. For Angela, endometriosis and period pain, for years and years and years, looking at potentially having to keep going back for the, to deal with the endometriosis, to have all of that removed. And yet through following the philosophies that we teach, was able to overcome all endometriosis and period pain. No more PMS for Emma. And so, these are sort of things that can go away. No more hormonal mood swings and depression with Deb. And so, a lot of the times people don't understand that there are some natural things that can go on. This is not a mental disorder, we agree, but there are some physiological things that go on, and part of it is a misinformation and myths that are perpetuated about hormones related to women, and we want to debunk some of those myths. But before we get underway, look, it is important that you understand that all of the information we're sharing about women's health and hormonal balance and men's health as well, it is our personal research and is for educational purposes only, so should not be deemed as medical advice. The information is general in nature, and so all of your individual health concerns have not been taken into account, so any comments and experiences should not be seen as therapeutic claims. If you have any question as to the appropriateness of the information with regards to your own health, then do discuss this with your healthcare provider. That being said, many of the typical everyday physicians today don't have the information under their belt that we're about to share with you. So we do encourage you to take self-responsibility for your own well-being and tap in with what we do, learn more on this topic and complementary medicine in general. So did you have anything to share as we get underway with a couple of other things? I'm going to just go through some of the typical symptoms of PMS and the jokes that we make about PMS, and then we'll jump onto the 7 myths. But did you have anything to comment on there, Linda?
Thank you. I was muted. Yes, Corey. I guess just we're talking today about myths about women. And you mentioned some of the things that were going on, disruptions of hormones for men and women. And it just occurred to me that, the picture you showed of the guy with man boobs, you were talking about man boobs, and it's called gynecomastia. That's right. But apparently the statistics currently, which is really, really scary, the statistics are between 50% and 60% of adolescent males suffer from it. And they know that it's due to higher than normal levels of estrogen in their body related to their puberty. But that's a scary thing when you know what we know and you know the things that where it's so obvious to what's going on in the world as far as increasing estrogen in our bodies, and there are things we can do about it. But yep. 50 to 60%, I thought that was pretty horrifying for young men. Yep. You showed a picture of an older guy, but That's terrible.
Yep, yep. And it's partially the diet. So get our Eat Savvy diet, start to clean up things. And so if you're joining us on Facebook, you can simply make a comment below in the post and follow any instructions there to access the diet, I think. But otherwise, message the page with the words Eat Savvy, and we'll send that across to you. You can also download it by visiting our website, so at savvy-team.com. So savvy-team.com. And if you just go to reports up at the top, you can drop down and download the Eat Savvy diet. And also on our blog, we have the 12 ways to get started, 12 steps to get started on the Eat Savvy diet. So gentlemen, if you are experiencing man boobs and everything, clean up your diet, follow the Eat Savvy diet. And then number 2 is get the report on toxins. So you can message the page with the word toxins and then access that. If you really want to dig deeper and learn about the endocrine disrupting chemicals that the World Health Organization actually have looked at and how that's messing us up, then you can message just EDC to the page. Just write endocrine disrupting chemicals. So just the letters EDC and follow the instructions, and we'll get the actual World Health Organization report back over to you. So that's on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, then of course just reach out to us, and we're happy to send that along to you. So yes, I agree with that. So gentlemen, you definitely got to clean up your diet and reduce the chemicals in order to get rid of that. Fundamentally, we've got to reduce estrogen levels, absorption in the diet and external and all that sort of thing. So the challenge is that women also, a lot of the times women are suffering from these hormonal imbalances and estrogen dominance. And there's a misinformation spread around that too, about the fact that women need more estrogen. Whereas, women, let's talk more about that when we're dealing with the myths. Let's look at PMS and a fun look at PMS. We make a joke of PMS, don't we? That, where this anger happens, like the lines here, it's not PMS, it's you. Because men can blame it on PMS, or the face of PMS. But please understand that PMS symptoms are signs of hormonal imbalance and underlying health issues. So PMS is not a symptom of menstruation or being a woman. It's simply a symptom of hormonal imbalance, and that means that we can correct that. So it refers to a range of symptoms, obviously, and it's thought that most women, like 75% of women, have symptoms, and 20 to 30% of them have severe symptoms, and 8% of women have severe symptoms that actually impact their whole quality of life. So it's a very complex situation going on. But, medically, they assert that PMS, they say this, PMS can be managed with medication and other strategies. So what we would like to say, that it's a sign of hormonal imbalance. It is not a health issue. Here's a testimonial in from a community member, and I have so much to be grateful for since finding out about the Savvy Team Wellness community. Ever since I was put onto the pill to deal with erratic bleeding as a young teenager, I've had 10 years of depressive episodes and hormonal imbalance. More recently, I developed severe endometriosis. The hormone balancing action plans and detox sorted me out. Later, after going in for surgery, the doctors told me I had no more endometriosis and no scarring, and so I avoided unnecessary surgery. Powerful stuff. Here's another one. No more moody blues. I've spent the last 20 years suffering from cycling between anger and depression, with no one being able to help me. At first, I used the Savvy 90 nutrients and then the hormonal balancing plan. No more moody blues before my period, and also my fibrocystic breast disease and lumps have gone. Another powerful one. I've been told that the Savvy Team PMS Action Plan, PMS Relief Action Plan, plus some, I've been on the Savvy Team PMS Relief Action Plan, plus some additional support products for 16 months. Now I no longer get depression before my period, and my fibrocystic breast lumps are gone. I think I just said that one, didn't I? I'd suffered from polycystic ovary disease for 15 years and was told I would not be able to conceive children naturally because my hormones were so disrupted. I was in constant pain, seemed to have constant PMT issues, and never had periods and did not ovulate. After following an action plan from the Savvy team for 1 year, I had a scan and was told that I no longer had the problem. I now have regular periods, I'm pain-free, and did go on to have children naturally. Pretty powerful stuff when you really, really think about the dysfunction that's going on out there today. So what are some of these typical signs of PMS symptoms? All of these things, from abdominal cramps and digestive disturbances to acne and skin breakouts to clumsiness to food cravings to headaches to even, sweats and mood swings and weepiness and all of these sorts of things. All of these are typical symptoms. Now, it's said that they range from relatively mild to more severe, but it's believed that 75% of women do have some form of these symptoms. I read up that that some people assert that it's as high as 85% of people will have at least one of these symptoms. So that means that 85% of people, 75 to 85% of people, display some sort of hormonal dysfunction. Some sort of hormonal dysfunction in terms of reproductive years. Did you have anything that you wanted to mention there on PMS and those sorts of things, Linda?
No, not really. You've covered it pretty well. In fact, some people say it's over 90%. 90% of women get premenstrual symptoms. When I've been talking to people, that certainly seems to be the case. That's 9 out of 10 get some sort of bloating, headaches or moodiness, things that they put down to PMS and get time off work for, and it's an accepted condition, if you like.
Yep. So let's think of, that's the PMS side of things. So that's for women of, younger and reproductive years. What about the menopausal time of life? We make a joke about menopausal symptoms too. We had the 7 menopausal dwarves I talked about before, and we have Auntie Acid here saying, when I asked God for a smoking hot body, the menopause wasn't quite what I had in mind. And we can reframe it all we want and say, I don't have hot flashes, I have power surges. Doesn't matter how you try to say it, the facts are that menopausal symptoms are signs of hormonal imbalance and therefore underlying health issues. Okay, so what are some of the typical menopausal symptoms? Hot flushes, night sweats, aches and pains, crawling, itchy skin, forgetfulness, headaches, irritability, lack of self-esteem, reduced sex drive, tiredness, difficulty sleeping, but also wakefulness through the night and waking up with night sweats, more frequent urination, vaginal dryness, discomfort with sexual intercourse. All of those sorts of things can really be there for menopause. Here's a testimonial from one of our community members. The first winter I spent in Melbourne, I experienced winter blues, also known as seasonal adjustment deficiency. At the beginning of the second winter, as the days shortened, I was starting to go down again. I started on the Savvy team's mood and menopause action plan and found it very supportive in coping with winter. It got me through 3 winters, after which I came home to sunny Queensland. And it's interesting when we deal with that around about the whole issue of low levels of sunshine and all that sort of thing. Vitamin D, low vitamin D levels certainly has a dramatic impact on creating hormonal imbalance. So many people are vitamin D deficient today. So again, more optimizing the good sunshine. Goodbye to the hot flushes and mood swings. Hello to sleeping through the night and not perspiring through the sheets. I am so much more relaxed and on an even keel since starting the mood and menopause action plan. So if you want to know more about all of these sorts of things that we just talked about and what some of these community members actually have tackled, then I would encourage you to register for our free masterclass on hormonal health. So that's available there. We also have a free report on the 9 things that can mess up your hormones. That can all be found on the blog and also on the page. So you can message the page with the word hormones, and we'll be able to get that across to you. So, Linda, before we jump on into the 7 hormone myths here, I might is there anything that you would like to share? Because I have to do a bit of a battery change here. The batteries have gone flat in my keyboard, unfortunately. So I'm going to pass it over. I'm going to pass it over to you to have a chat with everybody about some of these things, and then I'll come back.
Thanks, Corey. Yes, and certainly, as I was, if anyone, I'd love to have some comments from people who are listening in as to what you think about what we've been talking about as far as PMS and menopause. And certainly, I think they're things that we talk about the challenges, and yet it's something. It's not surprising that people think that they're normal, because when 80% to 90% of people have it, 80 to 90% of people, women, have some sort of PMS. You know, that's 9 out of 10. That's like way past the average. That is the average. PMS is the average. Menopause, it's the same. 80 to 90% of people seem to suffer severe. Oh, major noise sounding. Women in their later years suffer with menopause, and I'll talk more about that when we get to talking about the myths. But when I was doing this research, I was interested. I was looking at the whole, you were talking about genetics earlier, Corey, and I was looking at, when I was doing the research, looking at the science, and I couldn't help finding stuff, getting into theology. Theology and philosophy is one of my passions, and so looking at the difference between genetic determinism, like what we think of as a biological irrefutable through genetics, versus how much theology has impacted our medical perspective, I think. And it's been an interesting, this whole looking at the myths has been quite interesting for me from a theological perspective. It just brings that up. I can't do anything by science versus theology. You know, is it evolution or is it intelligent design? That debate's been going on forever. And so we hold on to a whole lot of truths that are actually untrue. And I certainly think that's been the case. And it develops through things because more and more people have it. When 9 out of 10 women have PMS, young women, when 8 or 9 women out of 10 get menopause. Women all go through menopause, but when they talk about menopause, we're talking about the myth that we'll be discussing. When the biggest proportion of people go through it, it's not surprising that it becomes a truth. And so that's the whole thing too about what I was talking about, science and theology. Somehow, what if both of those were wrong? And that's what we've been saying. There are simple ways to wellness. And we think pretty much a lot of the science and theology are both wrong.
Wrong might not be the right.
Looking at it from the wrong perspective.
That's it, exactly.
At 9 out of 10 people, it becomes an average. If you're below average or above average, exactly. You know, if that's the problem, it's the averages.
Yeah, and so they look at the bell curve as such and make sure we're within, like in wellness, they look at what's average in blood tests and the bell curve and all that sort of thing rather than what's optimal. And so let's just even think through this logically. Who has blood tests nowadays? People who are already complaining about something. So in other words, the average is the average of those who aren't well. Really, if you really think about this. So because gone are the days when we truly, truly have blood tests as preventative things. You know, yes, there are. That's one of the first things that they'll do, just a general blood panel, and so they can look at the averages of that. But you know, you're within the normal range doesn't mean you're within the optimal range. And so I agree with that. And sometimes they can be looking at it from a totally different perspective. And so while we could say that it's not wrong, the question is that perspective the best way to look at it.
Is
And
it
sort of,
skewed?
yeah, is it skewed?
Yeah.
And so that's really, as you said, that's really what we're wanting to deal with in terms of these 7 myths, these 7 hormone myths for women. So if you have just joined us recently, it's Corey and Linda here for the Healthy Wealthy Wise show, and we are talking about the 7 hormone myths for women. So let's get underway with the first myth. And fortunately, we have Linda here to give us a little bit more information here. I know you're used to seeing me here on the Healthy Wealthy Wise show, and I just wasn't game to go into the to go into these myths all alone. So the 7 hormone myths for women. We'll give you some of the facts as well. So number 1 myth that's been perpetuated is that women's bodies are innately flawed, and that's why they have these issues, or why they need medication or whatever. Whereas the truth is that all of our bodies are profoundly resilient, and they know what they're doing, but we have to supply the body with what it needs to optimize itself. And I just love, I don't know whether I have it here, but that this quote from our original mentor really said that given the right conditions, including physical, emotional, and mental preparedness, your body will always heal itself. Your body will always heal itself.
And it's interesting from that perspective alone. So we were taught that, and if you have that perspective, then you will look for ways of achieving that. If you have a perspective that there is a reason behind dysfunction, then you will have that. Then if there's a reason behind it, then you will look for solutions and find them. Whereas if you don't think if you think it's not natural and normal and everyone has it, and that there are flaws that we've got to use the pill or hysterectomy, breast removal, HRT, and all of the things that women do to themselves, men and women do to themselves, then you're looking at it perhaps from the perspective of that there's maybe an innate flaw that medicine can control. And I mean, I want to say, we're talking about the pill in a minute, but I want to say beforehand that if you're taking the birth control pill, generally it's like any sort of oral contraceptive, or any sort of contraceptive indeed, not just orally, then you're probably looking for convenience and reliability. And we're not really talking that. That's going back to some of the fun facts you were talking about, the differences between men and women wanting to have the male ability of not conceiving. That's really, they don't want to be a woman, they just don't want to conceive, and they want to be able to turn that on and off. And one of the flaws is that it's possible for a start, but we'll get to that.
That it's possible safely.
Safely.
Yep. That's the thing. So of course it's possible.
Yeah.
Safely is what we're dealing with here. So women's bodies are innately flawed, and this is the whole thing. We actually had the good fortune of interviewing Dr. Cheryl Selman, author of Hormone Heresy. I had the good fortune of interviewing her a few years back when the whole breast cancer thing came on, and Angelina Jolie was lauded as being heroic for having a double mastectomy to prevent breast cancer, because breast cancer was in her genetics.
Yeah.
And so we just discussed that fact. I mean, this is an example of the thinking that our bodies are innately flawed. And so if we cut off the flawed aspect before it gets the chance to be diseased, then we're more likely to be healthy. And that's flawed.
Yep. Sorry.
That's flawed. That thinking is flawed. And really Dr. Selman articulated that that's irrelevant. It's called the breast cancer gene, but it isn't related to simply breast cancer. And so cutting off your breasts does not prevent anything. I think that the surgeon that did that, I personally think that that's pretty horrific, but that's my personal opinion. Everyone has the ability to choose in this world. And if that made her feel more secure, then that was probably the best thing for her to do.
Yep.
But we're just asserting that the body isn't innately flawed. There is a profound resilience and knowledge in the body What we've got to do is we've got to optimize the underlying conditions to make sure that that knowledge and that wisdom expresses itself in the best way. So
That's
your
right.
body
That's
is not
one of the
flawed.
reasons I really love Bruce Lipton, really. His whole philosophy of, he's not his, but the whole principle of epigenetics. And he talks about the old belief of genetics determining our future. The genes you're born with are going to control the characteristics of your life, where we have proven, and what John Ray used to say, and the quote that you had on screen was looking at the fact that when you deal with the environment, whether it's emotional, mental, or physical, external or internal, when you deal with the problem, then the solution is with the solution, then the issues disappear. So dealing with the problem is an ever-changing thing that goes on depending on how we feel about it. And as you said, having your breast removed, we think that's not good. If the feeling of it is a positive feeling, then that has a huge impact on a person's well-being. But fear is a lot of the problems with a whole lot of these myths.
Yeah, for sure. And they are just perpetuated, and that's the big issue that we disagree with. So number 2 myth is that PMS is normal, since 75% or more of the women experience it. So that is not the truth. The truth is that PMS symptoms are a sign of hormonal dysfunction, and all hormonal dysfunction is a sign of something underlying going on in the body. So this is, again, the principle of epigenetics, that if we feel that the bodies are innately flawed and we are victim to our genes, then it means we can't do anything about it. Whereas the science of epigenetics has proven that today you can change the genetic printout, the expression of your best genetic potential by changing your thinking. If this session even gives you just a glimmer of hope about rebalancing your system, that will change the expression of your genetics as well, even without action, because hope makes such a big impact on the body, the changing of the outlook on life and the dynamics in the way that expresses itself. Powerful stuff. So the PMS is not normal just because 75% of people experience it.
Well, as I said earlier, some say it's up to 90% of women. And the things that come up are things like pain and pain relievers that we can get across the most. It's pain is a sign of inflammation, and taking pain relief because you have inflammation isn't going to deal with the reason that the inflammation is there. And other things that are utilised for PMS are things like birth control. The pill, we'll be talking about that in a minute, but it supposedly helps with the physical symptoms of PMS, but it can make other symptoms worse. And things like depression and antidepressants are another thing that are often used to control PMS. Diuretics, anti-anxiety medicine, all of these things are used often to deal with the normal symptoms of bloating, headaches, pain, moodiness, all of that PMS brings on. And yet they're not really looking, why we're calling it a myth being normal, is that people, women, are really not looking at the underlying causes that are causing it.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I always go, all right, what are the outliers? And this is what we're dealing with, the bell curve. So what are obviously they said that 8% of people experienced in the statistics that I saw had severe symptoms of PMS that caused them a low quality of life. Well, that means, according to any bell curve, that there are actually going to be the top end of things, 8% of people who experience not one symptom. Doesn't it make sense to go, well, what do they do? What do they do differently? So if we're talking about 75%, 25, well, if we go 90%, 10, what do the 10% do differently that mean that they don't end up with PMS symptoms? Why don't we do more of that, ladies?
Rather than just medicate the
Exactly. So again, I would assert that a lot of the things that we talk about in a hormone masterclass they probably automatically do, or were brought up to do, or are in a situation where it's natural for them, or whatever. And so therefore they are expressing their best genetic potential and not experiencing these symptoms. So the bodies have innate wisdom. PMS is not normal. It's a sign of underlying imbalances. And so if we correct the underlying imbalances, you are likely to see a reduction in symptoms. That's what we have seen. That leads us to number 3, that the pill normalizes the monthly cycle. The myth is that the pill normalizes the monthly cycle. The truth is the pill somewhat creates a bit of a chemical castration and takes over from the natural hormones.
Yep. This is a particularly interesting one for me, Corey, because it's 50 years ago they started using it. It was approved as a combined contraceptive pill, and it began being used in all sorts of off-label reasons. And
can I just interject there to really point out the difference here? So the pill was originally a contraceptive pill. The contraceptive pill is what it was.
Yeah.
And then it got promoted for all these off-label benefits, not its proper thing. So we are not talking about contraception here.
No.
But let's just if you're on the pill for contraceptive reasons, let's just take that off the table altogether.
Yes, because a lot of times if you're taking it, it is for its contraceptive ability. You're happy with the convenience and reliability of not falling pregnant, and that's really, a lot of people do that. But a lot of people have put it on way before then. And when I was talking about 50 years ago, it was only 60 years ago, not 50, 51 years ago, what am I counting here in my head? 51 years ago that I was put on the pill when I was a teenager struggling with irregular cycles. And the fact that the pill normalized, we're talking about the fact of the pill normalizing monthly cycles here, about the myth of that. Is it a fact? Is it a myth? Certainly I was put on it to do that, and certainly the pill is touted by the medical establishment to help control heavy or irregular menstrual bleeding, reduce period cramps, suppress ovulation, help ovulation. You know, it's all sorts of things. It's used to clear up acne, prevent menstrual migraines, all sorts of menstrual symptoms, and yet afterwards I had significant hormone problems with my menses for years. And
let's just go through that then. So you were put on the pill to normalize your cycle.
Yep.
You weren't put onto it from a contraceptive point of view, so it was an off-label benefit.
Yep.
After that, you experienced significant hormonal dysfunction and irregular periods continuing. So there was still something going on for you.
Yep.
And that led to what? Because you had ovary troubles then. Was it
subsequently I had ovarian cysts, and significant issues with that. So that was many years later. But for many years I had significant and unreasonable heavy bleeding, which would go on sometimes for months. And so not just weeks. So, you know, I put that down now to the pill that I was put on. It was one of the early days. When I was looking at the research, which was only last year, and I'd said the Harvard University article I was reading was talking about almost 50 years ago, it was approved by the FDA, the pill. And I did my maths and I thought I was put onto it only a year or two after that in New Guinea. So I was approved in the States, I was put on it in New Guinea. So, wow, how quickly, we talk about the speed of things now, but that was quick back then. How quickly did the word get around for medicine to be able to use this? And it was
to normalize your cycle for convenience as such.
Yeah,
and
well, it really was because I was having trouble with my cycle, and the doctor thought, well, let's try this.
Yep.
I mean, he was thinking of my benefit. He wasn't trying to do anything harmful, but I was wowed overall. I was like stunned really by the speed with which that information got to New Guinea
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
time, in an era 50 years ago, in
yeah.
an era of lack of communication.
Yeah, and so Dr. Cheryl Selman sort of stated too, and it's like the pill doesn't normalize the cycle. It doesn't create like menstruation doesn't. She believes that menstruation doesn't actually happen. It's a forced bleed when
Yeah.
you're on the pill. So it's an artificially created bleed,
Yeah.
but it's not true. It's not true menstruation. Because the powerful hormones are taking over from the natural cycle of the body. So and she asserts that it's actually chemical castration. She asserts that the best customers of the IVF clinics were the best users of the pill when they were younger. That's what Dr. Cheryl Selman, author of Hormone Heresy, asserts.
Yes, pretty shocking, really, when you think about it. And when you think about the numbers of women who use it, the stats are currently 2/3 of women use some sort of birth control, and a lot of them use the pill. And 62% of women of reproductive age are currently using contraception to stop what is a natural process.
And again, the natural process, we're not talking about the natural process of fertility here.
No.
We're talking about many women using this to avoid the bleed, to never have a period, to normalize their period, to get rid of acne, to do all of those sorts of things. Many women are on this for the off-label benefits, not the contraceptive. And that's what we assert is flawed.
And I guess to me, Corey, the pretty horrifying things are that the side effects are played down because women so much want the convenience of not falling pregnant, being able to have safe sex, so to speak. They really want it to be safe. And I guess my reason for talking about this is that complications supposedly are very rare, but they can be serious. And so complications can come on. It doesn't happen while you're taking it, and it might be passed on to the children, who knows. But the complications that they know and that they put on the labels of the boxes and pills is that they increase the heart attack, likelihood of heart attacks, strokes, blood clots, liver tumors, all of that. And it says in research, and in very rare cases can lead to death. I mean, that's pretty significant. But when you know that if you take them over longer periods of time, then many women are on, first of all, the pill and then HRT, and they're all doing the same sort of blocking of the natural processes of life. And it can increase the risks of cancers, cervical cancers, liver cancers, blood pressure increases, cholesterol level, and they're known to affect all of those things. Yep. So it's like, is it normalizing? It might be it's not normalizing the cycle. You spoke to that. Cheryl Selman spoke out very clearly that it's not normalizing, it's actually transgenderizing.
Well, it's eliminating the true cycle and then chemically castrating.
Yep.
And taking over. So in other words, the cycle is now being controlled by chemicals.
Yeah.
So when you go through the period when you're on the pill and you bleed, well, that's just a forced bleed. Many people are now choosing not to even have that.
Yep.
Let's just avoid that altogether. Many women also believe that the symptoms, the potential risks are only while they're on it. And this is the thing. Oh, well, it doesn't matter because as soon as I go off it, my symptoms of my risk of heart disease, my risk of stroke, my risk of all of that sort of thing, it'll all go away. Well, actually, no. And this is why Dr. Selman is asserting that the challenge is that the best customers of the IVF clinics are the ones who were on the pill for all sorts of different reasons, sometimes not even contraception.
Yeah, well, and now a lot of young girls are being put on it for the specific purpose of eliminating periods altogether, with the thought that as long as they suppress menstruation, that as long as the pill's taken, it'll suppress menstruation, and when they stop, menstruation will happen again. And already women are hormonally out of whack.
Yep.
The World Health Organization has proven that. And so And so adding this to the problems already being experienced, which they mightn't have even come into full awareness of when they're still going into puberty and being put on the eliminating period pill. I don't know, the names are going to change all the time, but the potential long-term damage is what we are really wanting people to be aware of.
For sure. Okay, so the next myth is that pain and cramping is an inevitable part of the cycle. It's an inevitable part of the monthly cycle. So, whereas the truth is that this is simply just another sign of an imbalance.
Yep. I mean, what do you say? Chronic pain, persistent chronic pelvic pain is something that stats say affects 15% of women worldwide. That's a lot of women. And so one in five.
Chronic pelvic pain. So constant, ongoing.
Yeah. And it's called a silent endemic, and it's often overlooked because it's believed to be pelvic, it's believed to be period pain, and period pain is normal. So it's a natural part of being a woman, goes back to the previous myth. And so just put up with it.
And I believe that that's because medicine is ignoring the fundamental issue that most of the diseases today are caused by rampant inflammation in the body.
Yep.
And rampant inflammation is caused by an overload of all the wrong foods in the diet, such as too much of the carbs and even too much of, fructose and all of these sorts of things triggering inflammation in the body. I was reading research talking about the fact, and I included this in the masterclass too, that they've made a direct link between the level of high sensitive C-reactive protein, so one of the markers for inflammation in the body, that they've seen a direct link between that and, they've seen a direct link between that and heart disease, but a direct link between the levels of that and period pain. So, in other words, if you have period pain and cramping and all of those sorts of things, even though we have solutions to help you with those symptoms, while yam tablets, for example, are a great solution for the cramping, in the short term, we need to correct the underlying imbalances because those who have period pain tend to have higher levels of C-reactive protein, which means they tend to have higher levels of inflammation, which means that the cramping is a warning sign that's alerting you to inflammation that could end up as cardiovascular disease later on if you don't take control.
Yep.
So it's, again, a sacred messenger encouraging us to take better care of ourselves.
Yep.
So if we just eliminate it with ibuprofen, then we end up with more disease.
And yet that's the commonly utilized strategy.
Right. So it's not inevitable. Many people experience, we have seen community members, they would, and Linda, you'll back this up, their period, they would know when their cycle was coming on, when their period was coming on, because of the pain and the cramping.
Yep.
They would go, oh, it's coming, and then they would have the bleed and it would all be back to start again. Yep. We've had women who then started to become shocked. They weren't sure which was better. The cramping alerted them to the period coming.
Yeah.
And once they got themselves sorted out and did our PMS relief action plan, for example, their menstrual cycle would start. Their menstruation would just sort of start, sort of unannounced. They'd feel minor, not symptoms, but minor sensations that they weren't used to, so they didn't take notice of it. And so they became more fine attuned to their body because they didn't have the pain coming on. And so they would naturally, have the cycle is supposed to be the way it is, and cramping is not a normal part of the cycle.
It certainly isn't. And yet it can, pain and cramping, pelvic pain and cramping can be a whole lot of different things. It might not just be PMS. It could be an
endometriosis,
bladder endometriosis. It could be a whole lot of different things. Like, as you say, it could be gut related, digestive issues. It can be all sorts of things. And so
but the great thing is, when you focus on a holistic philosophy as we do, it's irrelevant.
Yep.
Because, Angela, got rid of endometriosis following the PMS Relief Action Plan.
Yep.
It wasn't PMS causing her pain, but it's the same thing. It's dealt with the underlying issues, supported the body in its innate wisdom, and the healing happened.
Yep.
So that's, that's number 4. Pain and cramping is an inevitable part of the cycle. That's the myth. The truth is that we certainly can improve the underlying health of the body and eliminate those issues. So number 5 is menopause is a disease, a downhill slide where the ovaries fail. The truth is that the ovaries continue to function. They don't fail. And there's often another myth as part of that women's estrogen levels shrivel up, whereas you can actually produce ample estrogen in the fat cells of the body, and we're actually more estrogen dominant today. Yes. So yeah, menopause is not a disease; it's a normal transitionary process.
Again, Corey, we're looking at the percentages here. We're looking at the percentages of women, like 80 to 90%, they say, of women have significant things, and we'll talk about some of them later. But it's like when women are diagnosed with going into menopause, it's like all the fear that they come up with, because 8 out of 10 women have all of these negative results, negative outcomes, and they perceive that that's normal. And so menopause is the disease. It's when it's perfectly natural.
It's a normal transition in life.
Yep.
It's just where the menopause, the menses pause and cease. It's normal. It's been hyped up to be a disease. There's like, you went to see Menopause, the musical, all about it's very funny, all these negative symptoms. There would be no musical if it was just like, because the menopause, the period of menopause means that you've essentially gone 1 year without
a period. Yep.
Otherwise, you're sort of perimenopause, where the body's thinking about stopping things.
And it stops and starts and stops and starts. Yeah. And one of my earliest indications was when I started talking to women as my daughters got older and into their 20s, and I started to meet more women in their 30s, lots of women in their 30s and 35s. This is back before the turn of the century. That even 35 and onwards, people were going into menopause or having perimenopausal symptoms. And that's quite common these days. It's the common age is 45 to 50. And yet it used to be 50 to 60 or later. And so now it's just getting earlier and earlier.
That's interesting, isn't it? That's the whole thing. So puberty has moved 10 years earlier, and the menopause years, the cessation of the menses has moved 10 years earlier. What's going on here?
It's nearly moved 20 years earlier, actually. It's pretty bad when you look at the World Health Organization report. And if you haven't asked for that, I suggest you do, because it really is an eye-opener as to what's going on in our environment.
Yep.
As Lipton says, environment is just as important as genetics.
So menopause is definitely not, as the myth states, a disease. It's not a downhill slide, and it's a natural transition that in many parts of the world is considered to be sort of like that, moving into the wiser, older years. And so all of these symptoms that we experience, that we went through before, they don't have to happen. They don't have to happen. All of the symptoms are actually signs that you have underlying issues. And so that brings us to many women move on to HRT in menopause. Now, HRT was initially designed just to treat the symptoms, and then you went off it after you got through the symptoms of menopause. And so so it was never supposed to be a long-term thing, and yet women are left on it long-term. And part of the reason is because of this myth that HRT is safe, and that is a myth. HRT has some very negative effects in the long term, especially for the health of women, older women.
Yeah, so Linda, I know I've spoken with a lot of women who've been on HRT and had and some find that it does help to alleviate symptoms. Others find that it just exacerbates the symptoms. And either way, I've never been really happy about it since my very early years of experience with the pill. I've always been a bit sus about doing what's, taking precautions. And so it's really interesting to, back in the 1990s, there was this study that was done that was released at the turn of the century, 2002 or 2003, I think, about that raised concerns about HRT and the safety of it. And these days, that's been poo-pooed significantly, and saying back then, at the turn of the century, they said that the two main issues with HRT was that the extended use of it, as you were talking about, increases the risk of breast cancer and in heart disease. And they stopped the study, in fact, because they found that to be the case. And now they say we're using different hormones, we're doing things differently. It's also different, and it's much more safe.
Yeah, but wasn't that the nurses' study that was supposed to go for 20 years, but they stopped it early because everything started to go up? But I mean, again, some of these medications, the faults don't show up until 20 or 30 years later, or even the next generation, as we know from many other hormone things such as thalidomide, DES, all of these sorts of things in the past. So, asserting that they're safe without 30 years of research is pretty stupid, really.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how things like the thalidomide can be used and then seen to be damaging to future generations, and yet it's still used for different reasons. And why wouldn't it still be damaging future generations? It just is like interesting things that go on with some of the medications that are supposedly safe. So
HRT is not safe, and depending if you have unmanageable symptoms and you're not going to do anything else naturally, then of course, that's your choice. To each his own. We're just asserting that what say you correct the underlying imbalances, like many of our community members have done, and then they don't have the symptoms, so they don't need the HRT.
One of the things I think to remember for everybody listening is that we don't deal with problem. We don't deal with the condition. If you have any medical condition, your doctor is the one to deal with that. We're talking about underlying symptoms. We're talking about eliminating the underlying symptoms, the issues that create those symptoms. And so
the underlying conditions of the body that lead to the symptoms. We don't treat the symptoms or the disease. We look to correct the imbalances in the body. The doctor treats the disease, so that's why you get the right drug for that disease. Whereas we're looking as a holistic well-being. And so also we assert that holistic wellness philosophy can be started alongside whatever else you're doing. So most of our community members that got off HRT didn't just get off HRT. They started to correct the imbalances and then worked with their physician to gradually eliminate the use of HRT and any other medication that they might be on. So some they were able to get off, some they weren't, but they were able to first of all improve their underlying well-being and then work with their doctor to eliminate the use of the medication and thereby reduce their overall risk. So if you're not going to take any action, then of course, stay on the medication. And I was talking to a doctor the other day, and he just has this belief that medication saves lives. But in terms, I said, so how much time are you able to spend to educate people on lifestyle change? And he says, well, none. And I said, well, that's the problem then, isn't it? We assert that lifestyle change is the first thing, and then medication if that doesn't work, rather than the other way around. So, and most good doctors do agree with that. They just are so under the pump with time, and most people just wanting a quick fix. So the issue lies in us as consumers wanting the quick fix rather than wanting to correct our own lifestyle.
Yeah. And that leads us to the next point, really, about HRT and the symptoms of it.
So hot flushes and other menopause symptoms are not inevitable. So the myth is that they are inevitable. That is a myth, an absolute myth. Many of our community members have been able to eliminate the symptoms when they were experiencing them by going natural, and others have been able to actually, because they began on our wellness philosophies before their menstruation stopped, menopause was just menopause. It was
Yep.
a natural transition. There may have been a couple of bumps in the road for some, but it wasn't, years of dealing with troublesome symptoms. It was just like a few bumps in the road, a hot flush here, a mood swing there.
You're talking here about hot flushes, and one of the horrifying things when I speak to women is that half of all women apparently who experience hot flushes live with them for more than 7 years, and that's a long time to put up with such an inconvenience. And I can remember talking to a lady who became a friend who she became a friend because she was having trouble with symptoms and with hot flushes in particular, severe hot flushes, and had them for years. And her husband was at his wit's end as well as she was. And so I pointed her out to our mood and menopause action plan, and she implemented that, and they went away. And so her friends at work said, "Oh, look, you've just grown out of them." And she said to me, "Well, they said I've just grown out of them. What do you think?" And I said, "Well, the easiest way to tell is to stop doing what you're doing." And so she'd been doing it for a couple of months, so she stopped doing it, and within a week, all the problems came back again. And she rang me up and said, "Oh, this is what's happened." And I said, "Well, that's your, there you go."
Yeah, for sure. So there you have it, everyone. That's been the 7 hormone myths for women. And look, as I've said before, as Dr. Cheryl Selman, author of Hormone Heresy, says, all hormonal imbalance is a sign of poor health. So really, if you're struggling with any aspect of hormonal imbalance of some sort, PMS, menopausal symptoms, they're like the warning lights on the dashboard of your car saying that something needs to be done. I just really do want to encourage you to, again, take notice of our important notice here that we have been talking about, our personal research. If you have any questions, then do discuss this with your healthcare provider. But we would love to hear any inspiration or insights that you gleaned from this particular segment in the show. So do let us know in the comments about a key learning or whatever. We'd love to hear what your thoughts were. So again, congratulations for being with us here on the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. We've been dealing with the 7 hormone myths for women. And if you have been a member of our community, we would love you to share some of the success stories. Maybe, again, share your success in the comments. We shared a couple of the things here couple of comments during this session, but we'd love to hear your success stories. And if you are new, we'd also really love to know, how can we help? We do have an online survey that you can fill out. So just give us, that's a private survey that really lets us know where you're looking for assistance, and then we can point you towards the direct action plan or tweak it even to help you to reach that higher level of health and wellness. We do believe for your wellness journey, your best wellness journey, you need a plan, you need some solutions, you need guidance, and you need community. So if you want to cut through all the confusion and have a guiding hand to help you along the process of achieving wellness and hormonal balance, then we can help. Become part of our community today. You can even start for free with things like the Eat Savvy diet and that sort of thing. So don't delay. Let's get you started. I would suggest you also request an invitation into our private Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Facebook group. It's a great way to start just getting to know what we do. Remember what I shared with you before, that given the right conditions, including physical, emotional, and mental preparedness, your body will always heal itself. So let's help you reach that higher level of health and lifestyle. That's what we're here to do. And so really, congratulations for being with us here for the healthy side of the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. So if you have recently joined us, it's Corey Sievers here with the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, and we're going to be jumping into the Wealthy and Wise segment really soon. And in Wealthy and Wise, we're going to be dealing with the 11 ways to work smarter and not harder. So I'm sure you can all relate to this concept of having to work, to work hard. And wouldn't it be good to work smarter and not harder? Certainly here in the Savvy team, we're all about helping you reach that high level of wellness and lifestyle. But in terms of wellness, we really believe that dealing with holistic wellness is like working smarter with the body rather than harder. Fighting and hunting and looking for all the different solutions to each and every disease that you might have, or illness or sign or symptom in the body, that's hard work. Whereas if you focus on holistic wellness and the fundamentals, then and you help the body to function at its best and express its best genetic potential, then everything can improve. And that's a smarter way to work. But here in this particular segment of Wealthy and Wise, I guess we're dealing more from the point of view of your general life, your financial situation, your career. You might be in a business of some sort. You might have a side hustle. We work with people in the wellness industry to create a side hustle that brings in an extra stream of income. And that's because the wellness industry is a booming industry right now. So if you're looking for support and you'd like to create extra streams of income, then do touch base with us. We can put you into our private group, the Savvy Home Business Group, and introduce you to some of the ways that we can help you. And so that's really, but wherever you find yourself coming to us from here, if you have a business or you really engaged in a career, you're in sales, you're in direct sales, you might, all sorts of things. I do think that these 11 ways to work smarter, not harder, could really make a difference for you. So let's get underway. All right, where are we? We are ready to go. Number one. So the number one way to work smarter and not harder is don't do for others what they are perfectly capable of doing for themselves. So, if you're in sales or a direct sales business, for example, and you're developing a team, or you're an employer and you have a team of people, for example, don't do for your staff, don't do for your team members what they're capable of doing for themselves. And those parents, those of you that are parents out there, you know that this is so important with kids, that it's just quicker sometimes to tie their shoelaces, but eventually, if you keep tying their shoelaces, it's going to be a real stress for you, and they won't develop the feeling of being able to be their own self, and they won't have they won't have that pride in themselves and their ability to do it either. So again, it's the same thing across business. Don't do for others what they're capable of doing for themselves. And this might mean things such as, we have a phrase that we share with our community. We say GTS. Google that stuff, okay? Because a lot of the times there's ample information available on Google or YouTube or whatever, where you can just search for how to do something. And so you don't necessarily, you can find many people who've done a much better job at explaining it than we might be able to. So GTS that. But also, if you have a business or whatever, help documentation for your staff, a knowledge base for your community really helps as well. You'll save countless hours if you can provide the resources and information for people to be able to do that themselves. So team members, staff, children, encourage them to take the reins as soon as possible and stretch to their outer limits. Now, I guess we have to have discernment here in business and life. Then there are some things that are your responsibility, okay? But you'll need to step back. So you might need to step in. If you've delegated things and they're not getting done, you may need to step back in to get things going again and then step back out. So there may be, as a business owner or a leader of some sort, then there obviously are times when your team members, your staff might drop the bundle, and you need to pick that back up again. But again, you really want to do whatever you can to give them the power, empower them to grow and learn, because there's not going to be any leverage. You're going to lose the leverage. You're going to lose the duplication if you're in a direct sales type of business. If you try to be the lord of everything for everyone. So there is a bit of discernment there, though. You sometimes do need to step back in. So there's no business or income growth without personal growth in the areas that count, of course. And so when people take the reins themselves, that's when the personal responsibility steps in and they really learn and grow. That's when the personal growth really takes off. We've been involved in different personal growth seminars, and what they encourage is people to artificially take on a project in order to put all of these things into practice. And that's the challenge. Many people aren't applying the lessons in personal growth to real life. Well, this is an example of where, if you take personal responsibility for something, then it's like a project that you're in control of. And so it's looking to move that forward. So once people do get past a certain point and show leadership, their skills develop and they then want to take control. And so then you have leader development happening. And certainly that's something that John Maxwell talks about a lot, talking about 360 degrees leadership, that you don't have to be the top to be the leader. Leaders can develop from within the organization. And as a leader of any organization, you want to empower those people from within the organization to step up and take control. So it's just such an important principle if you want to work smarter and not harder. Number 2 is to focus on goal-oriented, revenue-producing activities wherever possible. So you can spend your day being busy, but not productive, right? You know it. So, if you can focus on the goal-oriented things in business, it's revenue-producing activities. So if you're in a normal career or whatever, then RPAs might not be of any relevance to you. But if you're in sales or a small business or direct sales or whatever, then or typical business, then revenue-producing activities are really important to focus on. So what are the RPAs in your personal situation? The things that actually get the job done. Revenue producing. They bring in new revenue. They bring in sales. This is where I love the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution. The Franklin Covey organization really looked at what are the things that lead to success in your business. The lead measures. Because we all want more sales. We all want more revenue. We all want more income. What are the things that you can execute upon that lead to that? That's where you need to focus on. And this is where a lot of the times we need, the grid where they talk about urgent and important and all that sort of thing. Many of us are engaged in all the urgent stuff. Much of it isn't even important. And if we focus on the important stuff that really will grow our business, our income, our life, it's going to be so much better for you. So don't get stuck in all the non-productive activities. Sometimes we do these activities because we feel better. We do the avoid dance. and so how can you make sure you get those revenue producing activities done? How can you have a daily method of operation that makes sure that those tasks are completed? If you're in a business, a small business, you work from home, self-employed in some way, or you have a side hustle that you work from home, how can you involve your kids if you have family? How can you involve them? How can you give them some tasks to do to leverage your time? Okay. And otherwise, are there some ways that you can outsource that or delegate things that aren't leverageable, things that you are best not to spend your time on because you're protecting your time because you're wanting to increase your income? Really important if you can, avoid doing those sorts of things and focus more on the revenue producing things. Now, if there's something that's going on in your business that's actually already working, the question is, can software automate that? Can you use techniques and systems and software tools to do that for you, to leverage your time rather than doing the repetitive task? So, because here, as knowledge workers, really, we need to focus on the things that are using our brain to expand and or teach or, work with other people. If things can be automated, then why not let the bot take care of it and you focus your attention on being a person, so to speak. So a bit of a workshop here for you. Go away and think of it. Either do it right now or go away and think about it. What are the goal-oriented activities for you? What are some of the tasks that you could eliminate that really aren't that important? Are there some tasks in your business that you could automate? What could you delegate? really think about that so that you can save your time, put the time into more productive tasks. Number 3, keep a good balance in everything you do, but keep up momentum. Now, in this whole process of holistic wellness that we talk about here in the Savvy team, we do recognize that it's important to have all of the areas of your life in balance. And I love this particular image that's on screen if you happen to be watching this on one of our live sessions or replays, that we just have rocks sort of balanced on top of each other, really. And it's a good analogy for the big rocks analogy. Sometimes you've got to put if you have that glass, if you have a jar or some vessel, and if you have big rocks, small rocks, sand, pebbles, and water, you know that if you were to put all of the sand, pebbles, water in first, the big rock won't go in. Whereas if you put the big rock in first, then the smaller rocks around it, and then shake in the pebbles and shake in the sand and fill up the water, then that vessel can take everything. It's the same thing with your life. If you put the big rocks in first, those goal-oriented activities, those really the things that are important in your life, then you can balance the rest of your life and keep up the momentum with those big key areas, but still fit the other areas around in there without ignoring them altogether. And that's really what this big rocks analogy is all about. But see, when I say keep up the momentum, is don't take the focus. A lot of people don't take the focus off the big rocks. A lot of people, for example, that we're working with to develop a side hustle, when things get overwhelming, they tend to just sort of say, oh, look, I've got to create balance, and they leave it, and they stop and start and stop and start. And so you lose all momentum. Keep a focus on those big rocks. Okay, take time out, yes. Keep a good balance, but don't let life get in the way and stop you from achieving your dreams. There are many parts of our life. We could say the personal, spiritual, health, financial, business, career, contribution, family. They all have to have a place. And when we're out of balance in any of those areas, we can, come unstuck. But balance doesn't mean that every part has equal focus, equal time. Okay, that's not what it's about. It's about making sure that you're well adjusted with goals in all of these different areas of life, giving them the relevant time that is necessary to move them forward. That's what it's about. Some focus areas will need more time to move them forward. Some will need very little time, and you can still keep them moving forward. So again, don't think that balance is keeping time in everything. One interesting thing with health and well-being as a project, as a goal, is that people tend to only put focus on it when the signs and the symptoms show up. In other words, when things have gone wrong. And that's not wise. We see it all the time, and that's probably because that's an area of life that we help people with. But again, if you're really engaged in your business endeavors and all that sort of thing, and then you haven't been focusing on your health and well-being, then that can take a slide, and then that takes all of your focus off the rest of the areas of your life. So keep a good balance in everything that you do, but keep the momentum up with those big rock areas. So with career, business, side hustle goals, for example, ignoring involving your family really in the goals and in the discussion, not getting buy-in from them, is a huge mistake for many people, because then there can be disgruntled communication and all that sort of thing, and then that leads to being totally distracted from your business goals. And then you try to put too much emphasis on family, and you take your focus off your business life. So it's like just spinning all the plates, but spending too much time spinning one and then moving to the other, and everything's breaking around you. Keeping a good balance in everything you do to keep everything moving, and then you're going to feel better, and you're going to avoid any hiccups in the future. But we see that so many times that people don't sit their family down and discuss with them their goals and get buy-in. We've seen times when family members have sat down with their kids. They've said, oh, I can't do this and everything because I've got sport, I've got this, I've got 2 lots of sport, and I've got music recitals, and they sat their kids down and said, what is most important for you? And some of those things the kids didn't even want to do. They'd just not been open communication, and they were able to, as a family, work out what the priorities were, and everybody wins. So give the maximum energy to whatever you're spending time on, and really think about creating balance in your life. Write down the areas of life that are important to you, such as the general areas that I mentioned before, but do you have goals in all areas of your life? Here are the ways that I like to break it up. You might break it up differently, but I like to consider personal growth, me, spiritual as one category. Okay? So, and some people divide it up differently, but me goals, things that are improving yourself or connecting with greater intelligence. That might be God, spirit, universe, whatever you might like to think of. So here in the Savvy team, we don't put any parameters on what that means, because to define it means to limit it. So personal growth, me, and spiritual goals. Number 2, financial, vocational, and business goals. The things that you're doing out there in the world. Really, really important there too. And you can break those up too, but these are the ways that I like to categorize it. Number 3 is family and interpersonal relationships. So again, that might be different for you. You might have them as 2 separate things, because family life, you want to settle a lot of goals around, or it's important to you at the moment, or there are some problems going on with the family, so you're putting more emphasis in that area, whatever. But I tend to say interpersonal relationships and family goals. Number 4 is health, fitness, and well-being. Okay? Number 5, I like to call lifestyle goals. So a lot of people put them into the other ones, but I like to have that as a separate strategy. Like, where would you like to travel? What would you like to do around the home? Would you like to move to a new home? What sort of car would you like to drive? What are the things that are sort of lifestyle based? And then the recreation and fun things. So these are sort of lifestyle as well, but they might be the things that you want a list of things that you'd like to do more often. Like these are the things I'd do if I had a day off. These are the things I'd do that I'd like to do on Sundays with the family. These are the things. So think where you're really thinking about recreation and setting yourself goals in that area to create more of that balance. Okay? So they're the 6 areas. So keep a good balance in everything you do, but keep up the momentum on those big rocks in life. That leads us to step number 4, or tip number 4 in these 11 ways to work smarter, not harder, is to step back and take a look at the big picture of your business and your life, a big picture of your goals and your life. So how often would you do this? Well, weekly is probably a really, really, really good idea. Now, David Allen in his GTD philosophy puts this forward as a weekly review, that you do take time out to review all of the projects and open loops that you have in life and look at how you can move forward on them. Okay? So perhaps with your big goals in life that aren't moving forward rapidly like projects might be, monthly might be enough to step back and have a look at the whole big picture. Certainly annually, you want to have a really good look at the big picture. Okay? And then break things down into achievable bite-sized projects that you might achieve on a monthly basis, and then ways forward that you can achieve on a weekly basis. And this is where project management software can really help. Free things such as Toodle-Do I use, and project management such as Trello can be really, really good tools. So if you have a project management tool that you love, share with us. We'd love to know your thoughts there. I would encourage you really to think about also a morning ritual. Now, we have a morning ritual here where you step back and just really have a look at the whole picture of your life in the morning as you're getting underway for your day. And we call that the Wake and Be Savvy process, the morning ritual. And Be Savvy stands for some things. And so you can get that document from us. Just reach out. I do believe if you're on Facebook, if you message the word to us, just Be Savvy, that we actually have that document for you. So otherwise, just simply message us and we can get that back to you. So here's a bit of a task, and that process is really to help you get out of bed on the right side of the bed, so to speak. Set your day up right. So rate yourself to sort of get a bit of a score out of 100 here. 25 points for how simple do you make things? That's the first thing. Number 2, your focus and intensity, not the desperation in achieving your goals, but your ability to focus and have that intensity and that desire to get things done. Number 3 is planning and idea generation. How well do you execute upon that? And then that leads us to number 4, execution, making it happen. How good are you at that? So rate yourself, gives you a score out of 100. How good are you at the simplicity of life? How good are you at the focus and intensity? How good are you at planning and idea generation for new things to do, strategies, tasks, all that sort of thing? And how good are you in getting it done? Execution. Because all those things are so important in moving any goal forward. Number 5 is utilize everything that's going to maximize every move you're making. Ride that wave. If there's a wave, like, let's talk about surfing, ride the wave. If you paddle out there and then just paddle back in, great, you've gone for a nice paddle. But what most people do is they paddle out so they can ride the wave, capitalize on the momentum of something that's already going to get them back in, and they just enjoy riding the wave. Well, are there some waves already going in the direction that you want to go that you're not capitalizing on? Utilize everything that's going to maximize every move you're making. So brainstorm on this. What can you use? And then get into action. No one ever just sort of sat their way to success. That's not to say that you can't ride the wave. I love this image here of this guy riding the success arrow on the way up. In essence, he's not doing a lot of work, is he? But he's riding the wave. So he's utilized the energy that's already there to ride that wave to success. And that's, there's so many things that are really going on in your life around you that you're not utilizing, that you're not tapping in with, that you're not executing on. And so you're leaving really success on the table because of that. So you utilize everything that's going to maximize every move you're making, to leverage yourself. So a bit of a rhetorical question, I guess, for those of you who are wellness guides with us here in the Savvy team. And this is whether you're on with us live now or catching the replay. How many of you know that there are people that you could have shared today's session with? For example, in the earlier part of the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, we shared points on 7 hormone myths for women. How many of you know that there are women that needed to hear that, but you didn't share it with them? You didn't maximize, you didn't optimize, you didn't utilize everything that's going to maximize every move you're making. And so that's a lose-lose strategy. That means that there are women out there now that didn't hear about it and you didn't get to share it with them. So that there are people right now that are hurting in terms of their health and well-being that need a favor, really. And the principle of paying it forward is sharing that with them in case they might know about it. So you didn't utilize it. So sorry if that gets a little bit in your face, and whether you're in any other business too, what are the things that you're not executing upon, that you're not utilizing? So is there of course you need to use discernment here and remember the other factors that we've talked about here. You can't be everywhere at once, but use the support that's there for you. Is there a book unread? Is there a course not watched? Give you an example for me with a course. So I paid for a rather expensive course or suite of courses, and then I just fell into the victim that I only had access to for 1 year, and then I just fell into the victim mentality. I don't have enough time to do that. So that I didn't utilize what I had there to maximize every move I'm making. So I said, righto, instead of thinking that, how can I do that? And so I made a change and started to get up earlier. And I've been watching the sunrise every morning and then getting into the courses. And it's been just such a good change. And I've really got a lot from just immersing myself in these courses. Lots of things changing, lots of ideas and all sorts of things. Rather than falling victim to I don't have enough time, I made the time. We're never going to have more time. We've got to make changes in our life. So is there a book unread? Is there a course not watched? Is there a community that you're not connecting with, that you're not networking with to get the wisdom of the crowd, for example? Let's use our wellness community as, as just an example. We have people we have all sorts of action plans and courses inside our wellness community that's free for those who are part of our organization. And many people don't tap in and use that. And then we've had new members that didn't tap in, went out and paid for courses, paid for coaching, and then finally came back and then said, "What? Why did I do that? I just wasted several $100s and a lot of time when it was already there for me for free in the course." So utilize everything that's going to maximize every move you're making. What are you not tapping in with? Utilize everything to the max, okay? We've even had people that have gone under the knife and had operations when we had solutions that could have averted that, but they just weren't tapping into, they didn't know. So it was too little too late. So utilize whatever it is. That's just a couple of examples, but utilize everything that's going to maximize every move you're making. Functions, community, Facebook Lives like this, YouTube videos that are shared, connecting in with people, getting an idea, getting a spark, getting inspiration, and then ride that wave. Use that momentum of what's already there to take yourself on to the next level. Number 6 is to stay rested and in shape. Love this image here of the skeleton sitting at the desk working here. So, keep yourself healthy and well. Exercise and diet. It's not just about taking supplements. On the flip side too of that, it's not just about just thinking that all you need is a balanced diet, because again, if we don't maximize what we've got by making sure we supplement, we're leaving energy on the table. We're leaving wellness on the table. We're leaving longevity on the table. Because if any aspect of your nutritional bank account runs out early, that's when you end up sick or beginning the degeneration process. So we believe in optimizing, not just focusing on the minimum you can get by with. So invest in your well-being. I guess when you really think about it, you are your biggest asset. So invest in it. So, for those of you in the wellness industry as we are, it's a hard one to say here, but your personal well-being is actually a marketing tool. So what's the message that your personal well-being sends out? Now, we all have weaknesses. We're all born with different genetic potential and sometimes errors in our genetic potential and issues and things that we've done in the past that have damaged our long-term health, medications that we've taken, all that sort of thing. So we can't ever compare ourselves to those around us. We can only optimize what we have. But nevertheless, are you optimizing what you've got, especially if you're working in the wellness arena? Are you a good reflection of health and wellness? Okay? There isn't really a definition of health and wellness because everyone is different. And that's why we're about helping you reach your best genetic potential. Not comparing yourself to others, but your best. Be the best you can be. Not someone else. Be the best you can be. Okay? Poor sleep. Poor sleep's one of those things that really wrecks so many factors of health and well-being. So, if you, I just wrote down here that if you don't have enough time for good health, you won't have enough good health for a good time. You won't have enough health for a good time. The old saying there. If you don't have enough time for good health, you won't have enough health for a good time. Sound good? A lot of the times we run an executive wellness program. We're thinking about workplace wellness here, stay rested and in shape. And most of the programs out there are focused on sickness. So helping the staff and members of the workplace avoid sickness. So basically tracking markers of health and all that sort of thing. Whereas we want to help you optimize your functioning of your brain, your energy levels, so that work doesn't take every last bit out of you and you have energy left over for the fun things in life. Okay, so this is taking time to sharpen the axe. This is also really, when we're talking about staying rested and in shape, in mental shape too. Personal development. This is all about sowing into your mind. It's not just a healthy body, but it's also a healthy mind. So, if you're struggling with some aspect about your health and well-being, then certainly chat with us. We can certainly support you there and help you reach that next level of health and wellness. Number 7 is to focus on your strengths and not on your weaknesses. Love this image here of this little boy in the mini Superman outfit, really. And, many times when we're looking at it, focusing on our strengths and not on our weaknesses, we try to fix up our weaknesses rather than capitalizing on our strengths. So have you ever done what we call a SWOT analysis, an analysis of your personal strengths, looking at your weaknesses, the opportunities that exist in your life to move forward and the threats that can derail you? Have you ever done that SWOT analysis? That would be a really good thing to do. Now, skills and strengths, how can you optimize those? So if we have this little boy here in the Clark Kent Superman sort of gear and everything, kryptonite was the weakness for Superman. So he had to find ways of being able to deal with that and avoid really being exposed to that too much. Do you have some kryptonite things in your life? How can you avoid those weaknesses and focus on the strengths? We're all a Superman or woman in some way, so therefore we also all have kryptonite, all have some sort of weaknesses there. So how can you build upon your weaknesses, still build upon them, but focus your attention upon your strengths and not let your weaknesses stop you? Like, for example, victim, well, that's just the way it's always been. Or everyone in my family is like that. Or, there's nothing I can do. Or it's just, it's always been that way. That's all focusing on your weaknesses rather than really looking to the strengths and thinking, how can I move forward? Now, when we're talking about in business here and in a side hustle or whatever, where are your strengths? Are you more high tech or high touch? That does not mean that you focus all on the computer stuff and not the people, because every business is human to human. We utilize technology to help us to do that, but it's human to human, every business. So some people are better on the phone, some people are better on person. Some people are great with crafting words and typing and everything. Others are better face to face. Some people are good with verbal auditory intonations on a phone, but some people do much better if they do a Skype and can see the person. So really understand your strengths and weaknesses there and see how you can optimize things. Just to give you an example here of speaking and everything, I've in my past been invited to speak at all sorts of different places, and what I recognized is that while I was fairly confident jumping up there and talking and I could articulate well and I enjoyed the process, I noticed that one of the weaknesses for me is that I was more nervous in some situations. And so I did a bit of a SWOT analysis. Why am I nervous in these situations? And I found that, sometimes people would reserve seats at the front of an auditorium for the speaker and put them right there front and center. And I felt like when I had to jump up and turn around and say, hello, welcome along here, everyone, it's great to be here, that I was much more nervous. That was a weakness for me, that my nerves were a weakness. So how could I turn that around? So by self-analysis, I recognized that. And so I would then take control. And so I would say to whoever the organizer was, thank you so much for organizing that seat, but would you mind, I'll just stand up the back here until I'm ready to go on. That way I could see everything that's going on and I could come up feeling stronger. So by knowing yourself, you can focus on your strengths, but build upon your weaknesses or take control of those weaknesses rather than feeling a victim to circumstance as such. So number 8 is stop being such a hardaholic. Stop being such a hardaholic. Now, you may have seen this cartoon around with the Midvale School for the Gifted, where the kid's pushing hard on the door when it clearly says pull. But I assert that there are many people out there making it harder. I mean, you might be making it harder than it needs to be because you are pushing where all you need to do is turn around and pull. pushing harder. Look, if we look at this instance, it's so obvious. If this kid just pushed harder, tried harder, it still wouldn't help. Sometimes you need a different approach. So are you in a rut with your habits, just pushing harder? I've just got to do more, I've just got to do more, I've just got to do more, rather than needing to step back and take a different approach? Are you in the habit of just being busy in what the 40X people, the 4 disciplines of execution people, with the Franklin Covey organization, they say the whirlwind. You're just wrapped up in, just things are just so on top of me, you can't stop and everything. Rather than your wildly important goal, stepping back and going, what's most important to me right now, and how can I get that done? See, we can have subconscious beliefs and habit patterns that run us that make us a hardaholic, that make us believe that hard work plus whatever equals success and everything. And yet, if we understand that our programs, our ruts make it harder work than we need to, then we can make that change. We can tweak our approach so that instead of push, all we need to do is just relax and pull, and we get better results. Okay, you probably are being a hardaholic. I know I can do the hardaholic thing too. So step back, and take a look at things in your life. Now, this also leads to the fact that you might need to delegate or automate or even avoid C-type activities. These are I'll just go through. A activities are goal-oriented activities, the things that are important to moving your big rocks forward. B activities are the urgent things that need to get done. They're urgent. They are important and they're urgent. They've just got to get done. You know that they mightn't really be goal-oriented, but they're just part of the whirlwind or part of life. It just has to happen. And then there's C activities, the other stuff that you could totally leave and nothing would happen, that you could totally automate or delegate and move forward with that. So think about that. Are you taking on too many C activities? Are you saying yes or maybe to too many things when you should say no? Are you self-sabotaging in some way? Are you not really getting focused? Are you letting the perfect be the enemy of the good? I like to say now, version 1 is better than version none. Because I like everything to be really top-notch. And sometimes, I've got into the habit of saying, well, this that we're doing, I like website development or communities and everything, and the support that we provide, I then see the support that others, I saw that we were providing, I was saying it's just not good enough, it's just not good enough. And then I realized that the support that we were providing in our organization was better than the support given by a $70 million Australian company, looking at the support that they were giving compared to what we were giving. So, really, sometimes we can compare ourselves and it's not apples to apples or whatever. And so really, you can be focusing on things that just make your life too hard. So how do you get the results? Version 1 is better than version none. How can you start to pull rather than push? Number 9 is to make sure your subconscious programs are working for you and not against you. This is a great picture that I found here of the iceberg analogy of the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, but with a deeper analysis looking at the higher self and the unconscious and all that sort of thing. And while I disagree with some of its assertions, I think it's a really good thing to look at, that by the age of 7, in the first years of your life, you're essentially downloading programs to your subconscious mind from the environment. And then your conscious mind starts to kick in. You start to become more aware of things and have more of the ability to choose. So if you're operating on many of the programs that you downloaded when you were a kid in different areas of your life, then, that's letting the programs run you. So, and so you're letting your personal beliefs, if we look here at the image, personal beliefs, cultural beliefs, projections, self-identity, our fears, our habits, they're all stuck here in the subconscious mind. And it's great that the subconscious mind can store these things because it allows us to just run the program. So you can just drive a car now because you programmed it. Many of the tasks that you do automatically today, you programmed into the subconscious mind. That's the good side of things. Many of your beliefs are programmed into the subconscious mind. Many of the beliefs about yourself are simply programs like being able to drive a car. And so I love the way that Bruce Lipton talks about this. He says that, although we could think of our mind as a computer, he said that almost the subconscious is almost just like an old-fashioned tape player. It just plays the tape over and over again on repeat. This part of your life, if you want to change a certain part of your life, you're going to have to change that tape because it just keeps your subconscious just keeps playing the tape. That's a good and a bad thing. Currently, you're playing tapes from your subconscious mind. That's the bad part. The good thing is that you can change the tape by taking conscious control, executing upon things like the Wake and Be Savvy morning ritual, all these sorts of things where you dilute the programs in the subconscious mind. First is to recognize that you're running a program and then make the change. So what tapes have you put in there or allowed to be in there? Take advantage of the power of the subconscious mind and reprogram it. A good book that you could check out is Joseph Murphy, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. That's one particular thing. Bruce Lipton has some good books too. Some of them differ in their opinions, but nevertheless we can make changes there. So some of the ways that you can reprogram your subconscious mind, goals, written goals, affirmation, visualization, for example, really, really important. Clear goals, having a trigger to trigger a change in thinking. So, for example, some people, if they wear a watch, just put a little dot of nail polish on there, and their trigger is that when I see that dot, I'll remind myself that I'm in control of how I'm feeling, or I'll say my affirmation, or repeat my goal. Others talk about keeping a goal card in their pocket. Others on their device, having a goal on their home screen so that every time they pick up their phone, it triggers them to think about their goal. All of those sorts of things really work to reprogram the subconscious mind. And you can't eliminate the negatives. So you can't really change the tape. You can only dilute the programs. So one great analogy is sort of like let the old, think of it as a double, we could think of it like this, as a double tape player. Old school, a double tape player. You could leave one there. You can leave the old tape there. Just use the other side to play the new tape. And eventually there'll be no need for the old tape and it can disappear. But, some people use the analogy of pipes. Sometimes when you're doing, even road work or any of that sort of thing, or work around the home, often all the old pipes are just left there. New pipes have been laid, but the old pipes just still exist. The old pipes didn't need to be dug up for the new pipes to be laid. So now's the time, today's the day, to start laying new pipes that make your subconscious mind work for you and not against you. Number 10 is to consciously bathe all of your activities with a positive mental attitude. We could say, put a smile on your dial. Attitude isn't something that you just turn on when you're in front of people. We might think it's like, grumpy, and then we get to a meeting or we get to work and go, hello, yes, everything's great. I'm having a lovely time and everything. And you're saying the words, but it's not part of your vibration. It's not part of your emanations. And so attitude isn't something you can just turn on. It's reflected in your vibration. It's reflected in who you're being. So, we can be stuck in hard work programs that mean that we have a negative attitude towards everything that's going on. We can make changes in that by looking for things to be grateful for. So, looking for things in life to appreciate. So, movies such as The Secret, What the Bleep Do We Know, all that sort of thing, they highlighted this whole aspect of the law of attraction and what we focus on expands and that sort of thing. But can you be more positive about the things going on in your life? Can you look for the silver lining? Everything that's going in life is both positive and negative. That's the duality of life. And what we teach in our organization is to do an about face. When we're focused on the things that we don't like, how can we do a 180 and go, right, well, that's what I don't like. The about face process says, well, now I know what I don't like. What is it that I do want? Rather than getting fixated on the things that we don't want. And this is where I love this quote from Florence Scovel-Shinn. Nothing stands between man and his highest ideals and every desire of his heart except for doubt and fear. When man can wish without worrying, every desire will be instantly fulfilled. Powerful stuff. Now, obviously, it's not talking about not women, man being the general mankind. So nothing stands between man and his highest ideals and every desire of his heart but doubt and fear. When man can wish without worrying, every desire will be instantly fulfilled. That's Florence Shinn. And so that means that how can we bathe everything that we're doing with more of that positive mental attitude? How can we wish and hope and look with a positive outlook on life and not let doubt and fear control us? When man can wish without worrying, every desire will be instantly fulfilled. So when we look at these last couple of steps 9 and 10, I'd like you to think about this and take a little bit of an analysis here. In the financial world, you could have a AAA rated business or investment. But then there are the CCC rated investments. They're not very good. AAA, good stuff. CCC, not so good. Well, do a bit of a rating on yourself and your life. A AAA rated you would be you when you're affirming what you want in life. You're associating with a positive community and the winners that are around you. And when you're applying the right principles and some of these things that we've been sharing here. If you have a CCC credit rating, then you'd be engaged in criticism, condemnation, and complaining. It's your choice. Focus more on what you want and less on what you don't want. And the last but not least, number 11 here, is to use your magic wands. We all want a magic wand, right? They say there's no such thing as magic wands, but we all want it. We wish we could just, like Harry Potter or whatever, just wave the magic wand and the bad disappears and the good appears. Well, I'd like to say that you are more in control than you really realize. So I'd like to give you 4 magic wands that you can wave over your life. 4 magic wands that you can wave over your life. But you have to wave it. You have to know the skills of being this magician in order to be able to wave them. Number 1 is to practice gratitude and appreciation. There's sort of different words. Sometimes we can be stuck in gratitude being, I'm grateful that I'm no longer there. So it has a little bit of a negative attached to it. Whereas appreciation just means like, I like that. I like that. This is really nice. I'd like more of that. It has much more of a positive attachment to it. Okay, but gratitude and appreciation, really cultivating that sense of gratitude and appreciation in life. Number 2, a dream and a plan, plus some excitement and enthusiasm attached to that. So number one is to practice gratitude and appreciation in everything that's already going on in life. To look for the good, to express what's good, to really focus on the good. Number 2 is have a dream and a plan. Really have a written dream and a plan. And attach a bit of excitement and enthusiasm to it would be wise too. It's, people who know where they're going just tend to get there. So that's just a magic wand. It's just so many, when I've studied so many wealthy people and high-level people, successful people in all aspects of sporting endeavors and life and everything, they had a dream and a plan. It was the magic wand that kept them moving towards that destination. And when we understand the psycho-cybernetic concept that Maxwell Maltz talked about in Psycho-Cybernetics, about how our mind works, if we have a dream, if we have a goal, if we have a plan, our mind looks for ways to achieve it. So it's a magic wand. If we don't have anything that we're going for, then the wand isn't working for you. You're not waving that. Now, it's true, there are all sorts of desires that we're moving towards anyway. We don't need to articulate the things to we don't need to articulate the things and repeat them for our life to move towards them necessarily. But I'm talking about actively waving a magic wand, getting focused and waving the magic wand, getting focused on your dream and making a plan is waving that wand. This is what the Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles really talked about. He said, spend all of your time, all of your leisure time if you can, in quiet contemplation of your dream and your desire. Visualize yourself with that. That's waving the wand. Your life may naturally move towards that if you're non-resistant and just looking for the good in life and appreciating and having gratitude. But we're talking here about what wands can you wave? How can you gain more momentum towards your desire? Come up with a dream and a plan. Number 3 is inspired action. It's all very great if you have a dream and a plan and you practice gratitude and appreciation. But if you don't act upon the inspirations, then it's not going to come to you. Wallace Wattles said, with thought, what we want is brought to you. I'll give you his quote. With thought, what you want is brought to you. With action, it is received by you. So if we have gratitude and appreciation and a dream and a plan, but we never actually take inspired action to receive these dreams and gifts in our life, then it's not going to turn up. It's like ordering a parcel, but refusing to open the door to receive it. It's turned up in our life, but the action of opening the door and receiving it is all we need to do. It's sometimes so small, but we have to take that action. Inspired action. And this is where we love Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. We often get inspired ideas, but we don't act upon them. We sort of press down those ideas rather than going, right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it. Okay, inspired action. And number 4 in the magic wands is connection and community. In all the research I've done in longevity of communities, it's about having a community around you. In Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talked about the power of the mastermind. All of the wealthy people I've studied said that it was developing a mastermind, a network, a community around them to toss ideas around with. Are you tapping in with the community that you have access to? Wherever you are, what community can you tap in with to really mastermind, to practice that principle? It's a magic wand. We could say that this is also being tuned in with the universal flow, with God, whatever that is for you, with spirit, being connected relates to that too, but connection and community. So I have a quote here from a personal development coach, Thomas Leonard. He was born in 1955. So he said this: people who wait for the magic wands fail to see that they are the magic wand. So you have it all within you there. Really, it's just about activating these magic wands and bringing things into your life. So they're the 11 ways to work smarter and not harder. So I hope you found those valuable. We would love to hear your insights on these 11 ways to work smarter, not harder. And so, look, we talk about for your best wellness journey in the wellness arena, but, whether it's reaching a higher level of health or whether it's reaching a higher level of lifestyle and productivity, you need a plan, you need some solutions, you need guidance, and you need community. And we really help you along the way there. So how can we help you? What is it in your life that would make the biggest difference? I have a question for you here on the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show for you to really identify. What would make the biggest difference in your life right now if you had more health and vitality than you have now, or if you had more money and lifestyle than you have right now? Which would make the biggest difference in your life as it is right now? Because if you can tell us what you want, we can show you how to achieve it. So thanks for being with us here on the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. We really appreciate you, you're hanging around and being here to chat. Something that I wanted to share with you that being a heartaholic here. And have you ever seen this particular image before of the donkey? The donkey with that's up in the air because they basically just put too much on the cart. And, this is an example of where sometimes we can just take on too much so that we go nowhere. Rather than organizing things where we can make sure that we can still get the job done and not try to take on too much. Now, the 11 ways to work smarter, not harder, is not to say don't do anything, don't act, don't follow inspired action. But a lot of the times we say we don't have the discernment, and we say yes to all of the wrong things rather than to the things that will help us move our life forward. So really do a bit of an analysis of your life and think about, where are you being a hardaholic? Like, you might think you're overworked, but here's this poor old donkey that's now no longer going anywhere. So might be pretty funny, but many people are doing that. They're actually putting so much responsibilities. I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And they don't actually put the most important thing on their cart and move that forward. And that's what I said before. So many of our community members have sat their family down and said, look, let's talk as a family about what's important. And they actually came to agreement that sometimes they were believing that the kids wanted to do all of this, and they felt, I'm a bad parent if I don't do this and I don't do that. When they all sat down, everyone was happier when they got focused and they put the thing on the cart that is the most important, and then they moved forward. So look, congratulations for being here with us on the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. We'd love to know your insights. And so look, if you're struggling with any aspect of your health and lifestyle and you're looking for guidance, then that's what we do. We're all about helping you reach that next level. So come and join us. I think you'll be glad you did. So until the next time, it's Corey Sievers here with the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, encouraging you to be savvy. So all the best, and we'll catch you again next time round.